You wake up. You pour yourself a bowl of cereal, maybe something that has the word healthy or whole grain right on the box. You add some milk. You eat it in 5 minutes, and you feel like you've done something good for yourself. But here's what's actually happening inside your body. Especially if you're over 40, your blood sugar is about to spike hard, crash, fast, and leave you craving more food within 2 hours. And if this is your daily routine, that cycle is quietly doing damage you won't feel until years later. Today, we're pulling apart the breakfast that billions of people eat every morning and explaining exactly why. After 40, cereal may be one of the worst ways you can start your day. We'll look at the science, we'll name names, and at the end, I'll give you real alternatives that actually work for your metabolism at this stage of life. Why your body changes at 40. First, let's establish why we're specifically talking about people over 40. Because if you're 22 years old and eating cereal every morning, your body handles it very differently than it does at 42 or 52. Here's what changes as we age. Insulin sensitivity declines. Your cells become less responsive to insulin, the hormone that tells them to absorb glucose from your blood. This means the same amount of sugar that your 25-year-old self handled easily now lingers longer in your bloodstream, and your pancreas has to work harder to clear it. Muscle mass decreases. Starting around 40, most people lose roughly 1% of skeletal muscle per year, a process called sarcopenia. Why does muscle matter for blood sugar? Because muscle is your body's primary glucose disposal site. Less muscle means less capacity to absorb and use blood sugar efficiently. Cortisol rhythms shift. Stress hormones are naturally higher in the morning. After 40, cortisol regulation becomes less precise, and cortisol actively raises blood glucose. So starting your day with a high glycemic meal, on top of elevated morning cortisol, is a double hit your metabolism didn't ask for. Now add cereal into all of that, and the picture gets very clear. The cereal problem. Let's talk about what cereal actually is. Most commercially sold breakfast cereals, including the ones marketed as heart-healthy, high-fiber, or whole grain, are ultra-processed foods. The grains are extruded under high heat and pressure, which destroys much of their natural fiber structure, leaving behind a product that your digestive system breaks down almost immediately. The result? A rapid flood of glucose into your bloodstream. We measure this with something called the glycemic index, or GI. Pure glucose scores 100. Here's how some popular cereals compare. Corn Flakes, GI of approximately 81. Rice Krispies, more than 82. Cheerios, more than 74. Bran Flakes, more than 74. Even most granolas and healthy muesli blends range from 55 to 70. By comparison, a plain boiled egg has a GI of essentially 0. But glycemic index alone doesn't tell the full story. We also have to look at glycemic load, which accounts for portion size. A standard bowl of cereal, and let's be honest, most people pour well over the 30g serving size on the box, can deliver 40 to 60 grams of fast-digesting carbohydrates in a single sitting. For a body with declining insulin sensitivity, that is a significant metabolic challenge. First thing in the morning. Now let's address the "but it says whole grain" argument, because this is one of the most effective pieces of food marketing in history. Whole grain on a label means the product contains some whole grain ingredients. It does not mean the product behaves like whole grain in your body. The extrusion process used to manufacture most cereals structurally damages the grain, raising its glycemic impact significantly compared to intact whole grains like oats, barley, or brown rice. And then there's the sugar. The Environmental Working Group analyzed children's cereals and found average sugar content of around 34% by weight. But adult cereals aren't dramatically better. Raisin Bran has about 18 grams of sugar per serving. Special K has around 10 grams. Granola can carry 12 to 16 grams per half cup, and nobody eats half a cup. The blood sugar crash cycle. Here's the sequence that plays out in your body after a bowl of cereal. Within 15 to 30 minutes, blood glucose rises sharply. Your pancreas releases a surge of insulin to bring it back down. If your insulin sensitivity is compromised, as it commonly is after 40, your body may overshoot and push glucose levels too low. This is called reactive hypoglycemia, and it's what causes that mid-morning slump, brain fog, and sudden hunger about 90 minutes after breakfast. So you're hungry again by 10 a.m. You reach for something, often another processed carbohydrate, and the cycle repeats. Do this every day for years, and you're running your pancreas and your metabolic system into the ground. increasing your risk of insulin resistance, prediabetes, and eventually type 2 diabetes. The World Health Organization estimates that over 422 million people worldwide have diabetes. The majority are type 2 and type 2 diabetes. Rates rise steeply in the 45 to 64 age group in virtually every country with a westernized diet. This is not coincidence. The sneaky ones, healthy cereals. I want to spend a moment on the cereals people feel good about eating, because this is where the real trap is. If you're eating Fruit Loops or Cocoa Puffs, you probably already know that's a treat, not a health food. But what about the ones with the heart logo? The ones with added protein? The ones with low sugar on the front? Low-sugar cereals often compensate by adding artificial sweeteners or increasing refined starch, which still spikes blood glucose even without the sugar. Protein-added cereals often contain just 5 to 8 grams of protein per serving, not nearly enough to offset the glycemic impact or provide meaningful satiety. And cereals with added fiber, like chicory root or inulin, often cause digestive discomfort rather than slowing glucose absorption. The way natural intact fiber does. The front of the box is marketing. The back of the box is the truth. Always read the nutrition panel, specifically total carbohydrates, dietary fiber, and added sugars. A useful rule: if the carbohydrate to fiber ratio is higher than 5 to 1, that cereal will behave like a high glycemic food in your body. What to eat instead? Let's talk solutions, because this video isn't about fear. It's about giving you a smarter morning. What does a blood sugar-friendly breakfast after 40 actually look like? First, prioritize protein. Aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein at breakfast. Eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, smoked salmon. Protein slows gastric emptying, blunts the glucose curve, and supports the muscle mass that your body is actively losing every year after 40. 2 eggs alone give you 12 grams. Pair them with some smoked salmon, and you're already at 25. Second, intact oats, not instant. If you want something grain-based in the morning, choose steel-cut or rolled oats, not the instant packets, which are pre-processed and fast-digesting. Whole rolled oats have a GI of around 55, and their beta-glucan fiber content genuinely slows glucose absorption. Add nuts, seeds, and a handful of berries. Not a banana and honey, and you have a breakfast that works with your metabolism, not against it. Third, healthy fat in the morning. Avocado, nut butters, olive oil, dietary fat does not spike insulin. Adding fat to your breakfast is one of the most effective ways to slow the absorption of any carbohydrates you do eat, and it dramatically increases satiety, meaning you're not hungry again at 10 a.m. Fourth, consider your eating window. Some research suggests that people over 40 benefit from time-restricted eating, not extreme fasting, but simply pushing breakfast to later in the morning. Morning cortisol peaks within the first hour of waking. Eating into a cortisol spike amplifies its blood sugar-raising effect. A simple habit: wait 60 to 90 minutes after waking before eating and drink black coffee or water in the interim. Here's the bottom line: cereal is not poison. Eating it occasionally, in a reasonable portion, as part of an otherwise balanced diet, is not going to derail your health. But as a daily breakfast habit, especially after 40, when your metabolic machinery works differently, it is quietly working against you. The blood sugar spike and crash, the low protein, the refined carbohydrate load first thing in the morning, the hunger 2 hours later. These aren't small inconveniences. Over months and years, they add up to increased metabolic stress, increased inflammation, and measurably higher risk of chronic disease. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be informed. And now you are. Check the carb-to-fiber ratio on the cereal box tonight. Switch to eggs 3 mornings a week. Try steel-cut oats with nuts instead of the packet kind. Small changes to your first meal of the day compound into genuinely different health outcomes over time. If this gave you something useful, share it with someone in their 40s or 50s who still starts every day with a bowl of cereal. It might be one of the most valuable things you do for them. Hit subscribe for weekly evidence-based content on nutrition, metabolism, and longevity. See you next time.